What's up, guys? Welcome back to episode 5 of the East Pittsburgh Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremiah Rowe, head strength coach here at Case Specific Wellness and Case Specific Athletics in Plum, Pennsylvania. We specialize in individualized sports performance and personal training for everyone from the average Joe to elite athletes. You can learn more about us at www.casespecificwellness.com. And of course, while you're there, don't forget to also check out Case Specific Nutrition for nutrition counseling for any goal that you may have. We have a team of registered dietitians all over the Pittsburgh area, and they're extremely good at what they do, and they just love helping people reach their goals in a sustainable and enjoyable way that works for their case-specific lifestyle. There's more information about them at www.casespecificnutrition.com or on Facebook and Instagram at Case Specific Nutrition. Now that I have made it through my introduction, I want to apologize immediately for the lapse in podcast episode releases over the last couple of weeks. I think it's been about a month since I did my last one, and I have no excuse for you guys other than just poor time management and planning ahead of time for recording slots to do this. Spent a lot of time doing a lot of things during the COVID crisis, but unfortunately podcasting wasn't one of them as much as it should have been. However, we are back. I was hoping to have a guest on the show with me today, but rather than try to coordinate someone else's schedule and my own and possibly delay the release of this episode further, I thought I would just knock one out here and we'll get a guest on soon. But I think today's an appropriate time, or this week's an appropriate time rather, for this podcast, for me to go on my own little run here, because at this point right now in Pennsylvania, we are only a few days from transitioning into the green phase of reopening post-COVID. Now, what exactly does that mean? I have no freaking idea. But it's going to be a little bit more opened up. We're going to start to see restaurants open back up. And just like everybody else that is listening to this podcast right now knows, it matters the most because we can finally go back to the gym. That's really what it's all about, right? What we've missed more than everything else over all this time is the camaraderie and enjoyment of pumping some iron with our friends at a nice big dirty gym where social distancing doesn't work. But that is where we're at right now. We're getting ready to get back to that. I think it's the end of this week that things officially open back up. I'm not entirely sure on the actual date, but I know that it is this week. And as of next week, the Case Specific Wellness Center is officially back open and back to business as usual, or as it will be post-COVID in the quote-unquote new normal. But here's the thing. I feel guilty about this, but at the same time I don't, because I have had access to our wellness facility here throughout the entire pandemic. I know, don't hate me, I'm sorry. Not everybody can be a strength coach at their own facility, but I'm really excited for everyone else to get back to the gym. For my own selfish reasons on this as well, actually, because I finally have more that I could talk about on this podcast. I mentioned on that last episode that I did a long time ago that I was kind of running out of things to talk about because most of what I would normally discuss pertaining to training was not relatable for anyone at the moment because it was inapplicable because no one could go to the gym. So once we are getting people back into training and they start doing dumb stuff that I can harp on here about, that gives me more to talk about, which is good for you guys. I hope you find the show entertaining. I really do. I hope you find it informative and entertaining, I'd rather say, because I do feel like I have information to give, but I also want you guys to just look forward to it because I make you laugh some. That's what I want to do in life. That's it. But we're just going to ride that smooth transition here into the first topic that I would like to talk about today, which is going back to the gym. Now, here's what we're working with here. It's been about 2.5 months, a little bit under 2.5 months, since the world seemed to go on full shutdown mode. I think we ended up closing the facility here. I'm actually just going to pull up the calendar and look. We closed the facility the week of Sunday the 22nd. That was when we kind of started to shut things down. And I tried to be a little bit ahead of it. I didn't expect this to be the crazy shutdown that it was, but I shut it down before the governor of Pennsylvania actually told everyone that non-essential businesses had to shut down. It was only about a day or two, but we were trying to stay ahead of it there, and we were thinking that it wasn't going to last that long. Unfortunately, it did. But with that time away, this 2.5 months, finally having the access to go back into the facility and move some weight around, it's going to be very, very tempting for almost everybody to go right back in and run right back to what you were doing before the break, right? Yeah, you've been away, you've probably been doing home workouts, doing the same couple exercises over and over a couple times a week, driving yourself crazy. But what we need to acknowledge here is that there's an intelligent way to go back to actual training if you've been away from it. Obviously not everybody has, but for those who have been away and doing their own thing at home, not using weights per se, there's an intelligent way to do that. And I'm going to try to do my best here to point out the things that I would encourage someone to be aware of or be cautious of as they go back to the gym, and kind of give you guys a roadmap on how to do that in the most intelligent way that I can think of. So just like we had to learn when this all started to train at home with minimal equipment and find ways to make our body weight and light weights feel heavy, going back now, we need to relearn how to train at the gym with access to equipment like heavy weights and our things that we don't have access to at home. So, I have 5 tips for starting out. 5 things to keep in mind whenever you get back into your training. The first one I'm going to start with is to not overdo it with volume. This is going to be one of the easiest ways for people getting back into their normal weight training routine to injure themselves and overtrain right away. Because when you get your hands on that barbell or those dumbbells, you're taking the 120s for a ride on the incline press, it's going to feel really good. And you're going to be happy to feel that external loading weighing you down, and you're going to be super excited to just rep out set after set after set after set. And there's a trap that we need to avoid getting pulled into, because we like being sore for a day or two, but not debilitated for a week after a training session. So rather than going in and, again, everyone's gonna be running for a bench press, or ladies, maybe you're all gonna be running for a squat rack. Don't just keep going. Like, cut yourself off. It's just like if you're out partying with your friends, having a night out. There's that point where you got to cut it off, and beyond that, you're going to have much more problems than if you don't. It's the same thing going back to the gym. My personal guideline for this, kind of what I've been doing with clients as I start to bring them back in and start training again, we're looking at no more than really 3 or 4 sets on most of these exercises. Now, during those 3 or 4 sets, you should transition to point 2 here. Keep your weights conservative. What I mean by that, everybody right now is getting back to the gym, in the next week or so, is going to be freaking out that they lost all their strength, they lost all their muscle mass that they've been working so hard all these years to get, and it's going to be really easy and really tempting for them to jump back into the same weights they were using before, pull out the old log sheets from the programming prior to COVID, and jump right into those weights. And now, I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying all of the strength that you had or your size is lost, because I'm not saying that at all. You'll get everything that you lost back relatively quickly. But your body is not used to that kind of excessive external loading. So those heavy weights that you want to move, you've probably not had that while you've been training at home. Most people, again, and I know some people do have a good setup for a home gym, or they've had access to whatever facility. But more than likely, you are not used to excessive weight. So introducing that new or that forgotten, rather, stimulus to your body is going to cause soreness. Like, we know that you're going to be hurting after you start throwing some super heavy weight around. And again, we like being sore, we don't like being debilitated. So we need to control our desire to run into the gym and start testing our strength right off the bat, and try to max out on our bench press or a squat or a deadlift, whatever. We need to keep it light, maybe moderate weight, and transition into point 3, control each rep. So as I have started to bring people in for my one-on-one sessions, get them back into the weight room, I think any client that I've been working with that you talk to will tell you that the rep tempos have been very slow as of late. And the focus for you shouldn't be on just pumping out reps, pumping out, boom, boom, boom. What we want to do here is think about slowing down our eccentrics or our negatives, and possibly adding pauses between the concentric and the eccentric portion of the rep, which is just going to kind of help drive that movement home and help you relearn that and get your body accustomed to doing those movements again, because it might have been a while since you have actually done them. It's an awesome way to avoid injury from technical failures from getting sloppy in your reps. Now, I mentioned eccentrics and concentrics there. Just for those of you who aren't familiar with those technical terms, I like to use them to sound smart. But your eccentric, that is the negative portion of the rep, or anatomically the muscle lengthening portion of the rep. The way I like to explain it to people that I think works out a little bit better, or is a little bit more understandable, it is, if you're using weight, it's the part of the movement where the weight is moving with gravity towards the floor, right? So if I'm squatting, the eccentric portion of that rep is when I'm dropping down into that squat. I'm controlling the weight, but I'm moving it with gravity down to that bottom position, which then transfers into the concentric portion of the rep, or the muscle shortening portion, which is when the weight is moving against gravity, which we all know, if you've lifted at all, that portion tends to be more challenging. The reason being is that you have to apply more than the force that you are using for your load. You have to apply more than your resistance to move the weight, where with the eccentric you can apply slightly less than that resistance. You just have a little bit more control of it because you're allowing gravity to do the work and you're just applying some force against it but not trying to beat it. So eccentric, weight's moving down with gravity. Concentric, weight is moving up against gravity. That's not really a main point in this podcast, but I just want to mention that because I do like to throw those terms around, and I sometimes I don't think about the things that I say that people don't understand necessarily if they're not in this industry. So now you guys know something related to strength coaching, and you can go start getting clients of your own. I'm just kidding, don't do that. That'd be rude. Point 4. Be conservative with your frequency. So a lot of you have probably generally trained 5, 6, maybe even 7 days a week in general prior to COVID. And if you have been training recently with minimal equipment while you're at home, I would suspect that you've probably reduced that frequency to better fit your home workout lack of variability, I would say. It's hard to find more than 3 days of at-home training variability from my experience. Some people are more creative, and maybe they do, and I have even along the way found new exercises that I hadn't thought of before for at-home training allowed those plans to be a little bit more variable for the people that I write them for. But at the end of the day, I really would find it or I would have a hard time writing out programming for the usual 6 days of training that I would do during a week. So now, with that being said, even if you did maintain your frequency and train your 5, 6, 7 days a week with your at-home workouts, you're not likely to still be adapted well for that kind of frequency with that external loading of the bar and the dumbbells and the weights. So reducing your number of sessions that you do each week and building back up to that slowly is going to save you a lot of soreness and a lot of injury risk related to fatiguing yourself and burning yourself out day to day with back-to-back workouts. So an example of this, something that I've been using with my clients, is maybe a 2 to 3 workouts a week of full body. And those are usually around 6 to 8 exercises, in which we incorporate point number 5, the fundamental movement patterns. Now, I harp on these all the time, but I don't think it can be overstated that when you train with the fundamental movement patterns, before you worry about all your accessories, single joint type stuff, you're setting yourself up for long-term success and long-term amplified gains, for lack of a better word, because I'm not a thesaurus in the moment. I have to look things up. But regardless of the goals of your training, functionality should be a main priority. Everybody should be lifting to move better. Now, obviously, different sports and different endeavors have different goals. Like, I'm a bodybuilder, so my goals for training, for the most part, are to look good, as best I can. A power lifter is just trying to move as much weight as humanly possible. An Olympic lifter is trying to move heavy weight as quickly as possible. Any of those, they're fine. There's nothing wrong with any of those goals. But at the end of the day, we have to remember that weight training, any kind of strength training, should help you move better. And if that's lacking, and if you're not moving better from weight training, there's something you need to add or take away from that training to make that happen. Now, what are the fundamental movement patterns? You have, I divide them up into 7. And there's kind of subcategories to these. And different people have different opinions on what's what. I say a horizontal and vertical push, which is 1. 2, a horizontal and vertical pull. 3 is a hip hinge. Think like an RDO or a good morning. 4 is a squat. Your hinge plus your bending at the knees, dropping down. Everyone knows what a squat is. 5 is a lunge. A single leg movement, more quad dominant on that as compared to the hinge. And 6 is a carry or gait, we'll say. So that would be any kind of loaded carry variation, farmer walk, maybe a waiter rack carry, anything like that, suitcase carry. And then gait, you're looking at potentially unloaded, right? So like hill sprints, regular sprints, maybe a sled push, things along those lines, where the movement is explosive and dynamic in nature, more so than loaded. And then 7, I like to include in there, is rotation, which I think is missed on a lot of people's training. You're not necessarily doing a lot of rotational work like band wood chops or med ball throws, or maybe you could even call Russian twists in there. But keeping that rotational core strength in your programming, I find to be very important, particularly for athletics. But those are the 7 movement patterns that I like to break it down to. And what this is going to do when you focus that, or make that the focal point of your training, we'll say, is you're going to build the general strength and general fitness that is supplemented well then by your accessory stuff, right? So we want the big blocks to build our foundation, and those accessories, single joint type exercises, to be our add-ons. So a good analogy for this, all right? Let's think of your compound movements as the foundation and structure of a house. So call it the framework, the walls, the actual concrete foundation, below everything, the bricks, etc. Now the single joint exercises, your bicep curls, your lateral raises, all those things, those are going to be your furniture and your decorations. that you add in after the house is built. You build the house first, and it's a house. You can live in it, but it looks nicer with these add-on things, right? What's a house without a couch, without a TV? So those are the things you add in later to make it a home and not just a house. But that is why I am so heavy on the fundamental movement patterns. I think that building a strong foundation in those is just going to set you up for longer term success and make you a better whatever it is that you're trying to be, whether that's an athlete, a more functional parent that's able to play with their kids longer, maybe you're getting older and just starting to lose your mobility, your strength, and you want to add some strength training in just to maintain that so you don't end up completely decrepit. That is where those fundamental movement patterns are going to build a strong base that you can add on later. Again, those accessory type movements, I always feel like a hypocrite talking about this, but because I use them all the time. But it's the add-on stuff that doesn't necessarily need to be there, but it's just helpful. Just don't make it the priority of your training. Now, that is my 5 points for getting back to the gym, and the way to best do that without injury or without burning yourself out right off the bat. Now I want to kind of slide and transition into, I don't even know if I want to call this a whole second part of the podcast, but just honorable mention, we'll say, for the Case-Specific Wellness Center and Case-Specific Athletics here. As I mentioned earlier, we have started to kind of bring clients back in for our one-on-one sessions. We haven't gone back to our boot camp or our group type stuff yet. We're just kind of waiting that out to see when everything was going to open back up. But because we are going to be going green this week, we're making that official opening day Monday, June 8th, which is this coming Monday here. We're really excited to get back to training and seeing people in person, not just through the lens of a phone or a computer. And we have some new stuff coming on down the line here. We're excited to offer some new training options and some scheduling procedures that are going to kind of help make our processes a little bit smoother here. And one thing that I wanted to mention for any athletes that might be listening is that we are going to be adding in a what we're calling a training camp, which is going to be an athletic performance type group training session. So this is going to be small group stuff. Our facility's not huge. We keep our groups relatively small anyway. Post-COVID, even more motivation to do that. So it's going to be around 5 to 8 people in each session. And they're going to be, those sessions are going to be programmed to boost athletic performance in any sport. It doesn't matter what sport you're playing. These sessions, this class is going to help you improve that. So the goals of your training are going to be focused more around strength, speed, power, and it's going to vary based on where you're at in the athletic season. So while it is group stuff, there will be modifications built in to fit different sports, just to make sure that we're not overtraining you in the in-season, and we're not going too light on you whenever you're off. I'm really excited about these sessions, guys. I think this training camp is going to be a really cool thing, and I'm excited to incorporate it into what we do here at Case-Specific. And the best part for you guys is that as long as we get enough participants in those sessions, they're going to be really affordable because the cost is spread out amongst all the participants. So we're eager to get feedback on what time works best for you guys, what you'd like to see in that. So don't hesitate to kind of find us on Facebook, Instagram, email, whatever you like. Give us thoughts on that. Give us feedback. You can find me on Instagram. You can find the Case-Specific Wellness brands. We're all over social media. So if you would like to get more information about any of our training services, or would like to schedule an assessment to see where you're at right now and see if what we do here, that our training might be the right thing for you, you can contact me at casespecificwellness@gmail.com or casespecificathletics@gmail.com. Either one of those emails is going to come right to me, and I'll be able to get you set up in the schedule and answer any questions that you have. And you can find our accounts for either of those on Instagram at CS or CSW Center and at CS Athletics, as well as on Facebook at either Case Specific Wellness or Case Specific Athletics. That is such a mouthful every time I say it. And you can find me on Facebook. Just search Jeremiah Rowe. It's a picture of me with my beautiful girlfriend. Shout out Lindsay. And I'm on Instagram at jrowe094. Again, any feedback, any questions you guys have, I'm always happy to answer those for you. We're glad that life is starting to return to normal here, and we can kind of get back to what we love doing, which is in person helping people reach your health and wellness goals for the summer and the rest of 2020. God rest our souls if we make it through this whole friggin' year. But be sure to tune in 2 weeks for episode 6 of the East Pittsburgh Fitness Podcast. I plan to have a special guest on there that everybody listening to this knows and loves. So hopefully we can coordinate that well. And I look forward to talking to you guys again here in 2 weeks. Until then, I'm Jeremiah Rowe. Thank you guys for listening, and we will talk to you soon.